It really needs to look like listen. Literally, if you have to close your eyes, just listen to yourself. What do you need? What feels good? And if you mess up, it's a part of it. You're supposed to.
Calling all supermoms. Grab your coffee, tea, water, smoothie, wine, or a cocktail, and join us for a dose of laughter, camaraderie, and the reassurance that you are not alone. We're diving into the complexity of modern motherhood because every mom deserves a mic drop. I'm Vanessa McAfee,
And I'm Renee Arthur.
and we are the hosts of the Motherhood Moments podcast. We are two sisters from Michigan who both had babies during the pandemic. After a few years of getting this new role of motherhood under our belts, we felt curious about how other moms are doing this mom thing. We decided to dive deeper and interview some amazing moms in our network, and we want to bring you into our network and share their stories with you.
Welcome back to the Motherhood Moments podcast. Today we have the incredible Kaleena joining us, a Detroit native and mom of two boys. Not only does Kaleena balance full-time work, but she's also the founder of Zero to Wear, a tech company revolutionizing how women approach their closets. Born from her passion for fashion and efficiency, Zero to Wear helps women style new looks using clothes they already own. Kaleena's story is a testament to the power of determination and innovation in motherhood, and she always does it with amazing style. Literally, a highlight of my motherhood journey was when Kaleena gifted me 3 bags of clothes from my son. It was amazing. Get ready to be inspired by Kaleena's journey.
Welcome, Kaleena.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, welcome.
We are so excited to have you on the show. I have known Kaleena for most of my life. How many years? I don't know.
About 20.
Sure, it's more than that.
It's a couple of decades.
It's getting closer to 30 now.
My, my, maybe longer. I was second grade.
Yeah, it's second grade. So we go way back, and we are so excited to have you on the show. You were literally one of the first moms I thought of when Renee and I decided we were going to do this. So I'm so glad we made it happen. How did bedtime go tonight?
It's currently still in motion. There are these plans we have, and then there are these laughs that God has. And bedtime is one of the themes of my mommyhood journey where I have this regimented, scheduled plan in mind of how I'm going to parent and have the best schedule to ensure the best rest, to ensure the best student shows up for their teachers tomorrow, and the best kid shows up to the pediatrician's office because they get 10 hours. And it's a joke. It's a joke. I just work here. That's how bedtime is going. I just work here. There's no W-2 in the mail. I have checked for over 8 years. I don't get paid to do this job, or I do, but it's intangible. It's like kisses and bruises and side eyes, but I can still hear movement in the other room. So bedtime is still in motion. That's my answer.
I just work here. This is going to be so great because Kaleena is one of our moms that has an older child, I think, out of our season 1 group, which is just amazing because your youngest is closer to the median age of everyone, but you have been in the game. So you've got some wisdom to drop on us.
Little bit. It's funny that you call him older because milestones for me, my next one is I always I call this stage the CPS stage. And by that I mean I can't leave them alone yet, or CPS will be called. But as soon as I can do what my mom did when I was 8 And I was like this responsible person who could make a grilled cheese at least without burning the house down for my younger siblings. I'm not there yet. And as soon as I get beyond the CPS stage, I will be maybe not like outside, but on the sidewalk at least, knowing that the house will be intact when I return. So appreciate the credit, but 8 and 4, those are some tough stages.
Yes, that's a gap there. Does the 8-year-old kind of drive the routine or the 4-year-old?
They take turns. I will say there's some semi guilt with the gap because I wasn't ready to do it back to back like a Drake album. I know that. But if they had been, there would be more synergy when I need it because it's just the two of them at home. They get along great because they don't have anyone else. It's just the two of them there. It's forced. But once they get in arenas where their age groups are present, it gets a little sticky because the younger one is like, well, why isn't he playing with me now? And it's like there are other kids his age there. For instance, all the birthday parties that the oldest is invited to, the youngest comes. You know that. You've seen that.
Yep.
But the youngest trying to keep up with the oldest with other boys his age becomes a problem. And then I have to balance that. Hey, look out for your brother because he wants to have fun too. And it's not his kid, it's my kid. So I want him to be 8, but I also want that big brother to kick in to make sure that while I'm doing the big boy stuff, I'm making sure my little brother's good. I feel like that comes with older girls, that maturation, that maternal instinct. I always had that with my younger brothers. I'm the oldest of 4, but I always felt like the mom. So no one had to tell me to look out for them. I was always looking out for them. But I have to remind Craigie that he has a younger brother. And so when I go and look in the ball pit or the trampoline, like, where's your brother? Oh, I don't. And it's really not ultimately his responsibility. I just want that accountability, that paternal instinct to kick in. So the gap, that's the only time it really poses as a problem. And when I'm trying to find shared activities, for example, summer camp, it's that time.
Yep.
And a lot of the camps 5 and up, because that's ensuring potty training, that is reassuring you know how to listen to me. You can repeat your phone number and address if necessary. But Grant is 4. He's very mature because he has an older brother and because he's been exposed to like social discipline at an early age. He's more mature and he's bigger for his age as well. But it's hard to find something where they both can go because the camps are typically 5 and up. So it's been easy for Greggy, but for Grant, it was a struggle last summer. This summer will be the same thing. And so a lot of those places near or in the city fill up super quickly. But I love to send them somewhere together so that the lookout, aka the oldest, is there.
Right.
They'll be at 2 different camps because Grant isn't at the age where Gregory goes to summer camp, but he'll be going with some friends of mine that have kids that he's already familiar with, just so I have that comfort of someone's looking out for him. So that's where the gap also comes in. They're finally both at the same school. So those morning schedules where we're separating and you need to be here, you need to go, we'll do that this summer. But during the school year, it's easier because they're both going to the same place. So those are the things we don't think about when we think about, oh, have them back to back. I felt like as soon as I got back to being myself after Gregory, then I was pregnant again. So we do put that pressure on ourselves to have kids back to back, but not thinking about the day-to-day life of what it would be like. Because I think it's the lesser of 2 evils. When you have them back to back, could you imagine raising 2 under 2? Everyone I know that's doing that has a little less marbles than I do. But they say you get it out of the way. But then if you have the gap, it presents a different set of challenges. So either way, motherhood is madness. Either way. So you just choose.
Choose your adventure.
You choose it.
Pretty much. I'm trying to roll the dice and do both. Have a gap and then back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Wish me luck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good luck. Good luck.
Slide into 40 with like back to backs. No, but it's so interesting that you're talking about balancing schedules, friendships, activities. These are things that I have not given any thought to. So thank you so much for just mentioning those things. This is why we're here, because that perspective is so invaluable. So thank you for sharing. We want to talk about how you are managing these demands of motherhood, you have two boys alongside running a business, because I believe entrepreneurship is on the rise. I know it's on the rise for women. That would mean for moms. And I know that there's a lot there to the journey. But yeah, how are you actually managing the demands of motherhood alongside running a business?
I think my answer is the same as how did bedtime go tonight? It's in motion. I think that's my life theme right now. It's in motion. And it is a struggle for a type A overachiever or high achiever that is used to having this plan and then a plan for that plan and then another plan for that plan. That's probably the least used word in my vocabulary now is plan. Because, like, what is that? If I make them and believe in them, then I normally get disappointed. So I make them very loosely. And I use words like, well, the plan is to versus this is the plan. Balancing all of those things, you get the mix up between the rubber balls and the crystal balls. The rubber balls are things that I've assessed that can bounce and I'll wait. It'll come back. I can get to that. It's not emergency. It'll come back. Boomerang. Crystal, that's going to shatter. I need to do that right now. That deadline is today. I have to do that. This application is due. And then sometimes they switch. And you're like, oh my God, that rubber one is crystal now. What do you do? I've learned how to ask for help. I still struggle with it, but I've learned to get better at it. I don't like it, but I think it's very humbling. It requires discomfort because you are consistently stretching outside of what your normal is, and you've been yourself longer than you've been any of these things. In my case, I've been Kaleena longer than I've been a mother, I've been Kaleena longer than I've been married to somebody, and I've been Kaleena longer than I've been an entrepreneur. And each of those things require a different Kaleena to show up. You have to show up differently in each of those platforms. You have to code switch with yourself when you're stretching yourself to wear more than one hat. And it can all be stuff that you love, but it's still going to come with challenges. So I love the rewarding work that I do as a director for a nonprofit that helps to launch tech careers for underrepresented and underserved. Love that. I love being their mom. I love Zero to Wear. I love being of service to all mankind through my sorority. However, all those things present challenges when you're trying to do them all at once. And so I think to give yourself grace and shed all the parts and people who don't promote, prompt, or encourage that is how you get through it.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you feel like it is a different version of yourself that shows up in each of the roles, or is it different sides of you?
Different strain. So when I say show up different, I mean like pull on the different strains. So some of them overlap, like my project management kicks in for sorority work and work and entrepreneurship. And it doesn't feel like so much of a project with the kids, but it is too, because they have schedules as well. And they have different emotions they have to navigate through, and they don't always align with yours.
So we really do want to know what inspired you to create Zero to Wear. You're working full time, you had your two boys, you're in your sorority. How did this adventure of entrepreneurship come to you? And we want to know, did you launch before or after you became a mom?
It was after, because I did it afraid. It was out of fear. It had been in my phone since prior, but just in the notes page, because there was never the right time. I always felt like it needed way more time, way more attention, and that it needed to be something uninterrupted. And then I wouldn't say quickly, I learned 7 years after it sat there that there's never going to be a time. So you just have to do it. And that was just an Instagram quote to me before, but it's real. I was really encouraged by volunteering with Tech Town Detroit as an Ask an Expert volunteer for business owners who wanted to sharpen their customer service. I was pregnant with Grant, the youngest, and I was volunteering some time. And I was very inspired by all of the business owners that I was helping coach through their processes. And no one had it all together. And I'm like, but they're here and they are ideating and creating and solving problems. Why am I not doing the same thing that was been sitting in my phone? I'm great at storytelling. I'm great at articulating where this came from. And then this is a problem I hear a lot of women talk about. And it was me just focusing on women because I was comfortable speaking for women as a woman. And now I've learned through a lot of customer discovery that this is a problem for more than just women. The problem of understanding your relationship with your clothes and utilizing what you have in your closet. Zero to Wear was inspired by something that I've done my entire life, which is mask my insecurities with clothing. I literally was just having this conversation with my aunt earlier at how I often felt like I needed to minimize myself in certain spaces where it was uncomfortable to be the smart one in the room or go to a school that wasn't where my neighborhood peers went. So growing up in a blue collar, middle class neighborhood with two working parents, they weren't taking me to Somerset every weekend, but I always wanted to be a stylish girl. I mean, I'm from Detroit. My aunts and older cousins had all the Guess jeans, and one cousin in particular, she had like the mushroom haircut and she had the used and damaged two-piece, and she wore her hosiery under her jeans with like these loafers. And I just wanted to be so fly, like bamboo earrings. I just wanted to be fly. And so I would remix all the clothes in my closet to look different because I couldn't go to Somerset every weekend. I just always wanted to look like I had something new on, always. And so I would do that. I would take things that were a two-piece, but I would remix it. And even my mom would be like, where'd you get that from? And I would do the same thing with like my dolls and stuff. I went to school with peers who lived in affluent neighborhoods. And I remember thinking, no one would understand or know how insecure I was if I show up and look just like them. They wouldn't know that I was carrying these insecurities. And no one was telling me, oh, you live in a normal house and I live on this sprawling estate in Boston Edison or Sherwood Forest or off the golf club. No one knew. It was me thinking that I was wearing it out loud. So the pressure that I put on myself was unnecessary, but I felt like it was very loud that I was normal and I didn't want to be normal. I would code switch though when I was with the girls in my neighborhood who went to our neighborhood schools. If you lived east, you went to Kettering, Denby, Osborne, Finney. I went to Renaissance. If you lived in my neighborhood, you went to one of the local elementary or middle schools that were in walking distance. I went to Bates. So who do you think you are? You sound white. You dress white. You think you're smarter than us. Why do you go to school on the West Side? Why do you go to that school? Isn't that the school for gifted and talented? So I figured out how to dress and talk and look like them around them so I wouldn't stand out. Then I would do the same thing when I was with my peers at Bates and Renaissance, dress and talk and look like. And then I always felt like I needed to be churchy at home because I'm a PK. So I would figure out how to fit in there. And I knew how to dress for each situation. So I was already Zero to Wear without even understanding it.
Yeah, wow.
So that's where I was inspired. But I didn't realize until college when my friends, like we all wanted to show up really fly to all the events and we were on a college budget. And they would be like, Kaleena, can you help me? And I'm like, girl, all you got to do is remember you wore that one thing to this one thing. And then we wore that to Fake the Funk at Michigan State. And then we wore that to Grambling's Homecoming. Just put that to, and I didn't realize that it was inside. I thought everybody was doing this. No, ma'am, this is a talent. And so I still wouldn't consider myself a stylist. I just knew how to make things work for me and my friends. The issue was I could never remember where everything was. And I always wanted to be able to see everything at once. And that's what I'm building, the ability to play in your clothes anywhere, anytime.
I love that.
You are good at storytelling.
You are.
What a story. I feel like I was right there with little Kaleena on the east side.
You were.
With her neighborhood friends being like, you think you better than us because you go to Renaissance?
I didn't know how to be confident. And no, I don't. I'm just like you.
We're all Bates kids. I have dealt with a lot of the same things in different ways that you were talking about. Bates is like a school for the gifted and talented. And we did have to do a lot of code switching growing up in Detroit and being pulled into that school like a magnet, having to deal with the neighborhood forces. And then when you go to high school, are you going to the neighborhood high school or not? Then when you get to college, and it has created a lot of our identities. A lot of Bates kids, I think, have the same struggles.
Mm-hmm.
But it's beautiful too, because I don't know, it just gives us a unique experience. Kaleena, do you have a parenting style? And if so, how would you describe it?
That too was in motion. With the first, there were all those first fears. Let me read the book. Let me know exactly what to do. And some of what we were groomed to be as base kids, I'm like, I need this for myself because now I'm having a Black boy. I got to show up differently. I am doing something for Gregory that I am very excited. I am seeing things in him that I don't think anyone noticed about me around this age with the anxiety for perfection. We have this platform, and I would say it probably skyrocketed post-COVID with mental health awareness. There's an entire month now. There are names for things that I have felt my entire life and didn't know it was a thing. Anxiety, imposter syndrome. They have names now. I always had these butterflies all the time, and I always needed to be right or look good in everything I did, or this fear, this crippling fear would come. And I still have all my journals from first and second grade on up. And I was reading my journals with the boys one day, and they thought it was hilarious. Like, Mom, you were such a nerd. Greggy said, you are such a nerd, because I would end almost each passage with, I hope I get an A, or I hope my homework was good enough, or summer break is here. I can't wait to get back to school. Like, who didn't want to be out for summer? I didn't want to. I wanted to be in school all the time, but I was always worried about my grades, and they were great, but I was always worried about my grades.
Mm.
And so the anxiety that I had as a kid, my mom and dad should have been able to, if they were a 2024 parent, I would have been in therapy. We would have talked through my feelings. I would have had coping mechanisms.
Some breathing exercises.
All of it.
Yoga.
All of it. Bikram. Hot. What kind? Gregory got the word giraffe wrong a couple weeks ago in his spelling test. He put 2 R's instead of 2 F's. You would have thought a puppy died. And I was like, that's Kaleena 2.0. I see it all the time when he's studying for an exam, or when he is not kicking the ball quite right in soccer, or if his dad is disappointed because he didn't do something, and it starts with his hands. Like he does this thing like, but, or he stutters, or he starts to tear up, or it would be just like a normal discipline. So I'm like, that's anxiety. So we talk about how to fail. We talk about how to lose. Greg did this thing with him early on where go cry, go take the time you want in your room, go cry, go scream, do it in your pillow. When you're done, come out and we'll talk about it.
Oh.
He learned breathing exercises from Greg, and he does it with Grant now. But I leave space for him to just tell me his feelings, because I didn't have that space. It was like, depressed, go depress those dishes. Like we got stuff to do. And I'm a 2024 parent, so I see it at 8 and I'm like, oh, no, we're not creating another one of these. So my parenting style is I want to lead with how to fail, because I don't know how at almost 40.
Yeah, what it looks like.
What does it look like to fail? I mean, even biblically, we do that with intent. We go to stories where someone failed and God loved them through the failure, because I didn't start to learn that until recently. My parenting style is the antithesis of what I think culturally we've done, generationally we've done. What goes on in this house stays in this house. That made me internalize so much conflict. I always felt different. I often would be looking for clues to find out whether or not I was adopted, because I always felt so different. I always felt so different. I was the only girl for a very long time. And then even when my sister came, we were 10 years apart. So right when we started to get in sync with one another and we could have shared experiences and she could understand me, I lost her. And I'm like, the weight of it is more heavy now than when it initially happened, because there are certain things as an adult
Yeah.
that I cannot. You guys can call each other about wife things and mom things. That was my person. And I have friends, but it's different when you came up in the same household from the same womb. There's just some unspoken things there. And I internalized that was my thing. So I don't want any of those generational things that we were taught culturally out of survival to do. I don't want that for him. I want him to feel liberated. I want him to be aware. I want him to know his triggers and his glimmers. I want him to advocate for himself and be able to work through his emotions healthily. So my parenting style is very 2024. It's very woke and aware.
Yes.
This is why I get so excited for their generation. Like, I just cannot imagine the humans they will be when they're like 16, 18, 25. They're going to be so different.
They're very unassuming and cute and non-threatening right now with their locks and their braids and their gorgeous brows and their bright smiles. But as soon as they are 6 feet, someone's going to cross the street or clutch their purse a little tighter to them. Or if they come in a room and they don't have eye contact and greet everyone, they might be posed as a threat. He's acting mysterious. He's not speaking. He has his hood on. My boys need to understand who people might think they are. And I don't want them to have to code switch in the ways that they can't be themselves. I want them to be themselves. Like, this is a whole different, I mean, people are working remotely. You can have a tattoo. You can have, this is so different than how we were groomed from workplace culture.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to thrive in that. Even when they get into a more competitive environment, that's something else too. I want them to have a highly competitive education so that when they're in the Silicon Valleys and the other regions outside of Michigan, that they still have an opportunity and a chance. And a lot of that is social capital, how you present, how you show up.
Absolutely. You're equipping them with the tools to be able to process their feelings and their experience when they get into those spaces. And so that's really great.
About me there.
Yes. Especially as boys, I find myself thinking about like my son's future partner and just the level of emotional intelligence that I want to instill in him so that all the funny memes and things we talk about now, like, I'm just like, I don't even want this to apply for my son because I address them so early. And it doesn't mean he'll be perfect, but
Right.
I don't want him to be a full grown man and not have any emotional intelligence. So it's just like planting the seeds. I believe in that.
And even for girls, I talk to Lolo a lot about just her feelings. Like, we have a feelings chair in our house, and she can tell me, I want to go to the feelings chair, and we talk. And that's also not something I grew up with. You know, I think it's not that my parents didn't care about my feelings. It just, we didn't take time and pause to really talk about them for as long as I wanted to talk about them. So I also turned to things like journals, and journals are great, but you also need a human response to your feelings too, to help you process them.
That's exactly the word that came to me, Vanessa. Pause. I was marveling, putting it all together. Wow, Kaleena really, she's busy, but she's so aware as a mom. She's still taking these pauses and these moments despite the busyness.
Right.
I don't feel like I was very present with my oldest. I was, instead of focusing on my daily bread, I was worried about tomorrow's. Is it pumpernickel? What kind is it? I need the future. What's tomorrow's bread look like? I need the forecast. We get all these memories now with our iPhones and with Snapchat. I get these memories. There was one earlier we were watching today, and he had on a pull-up. He was so adorable, and I do not remember that moment. I don't remember a lot of his little moments. I went back to work really quickly with Grant. I have been so present. Any memory that pops up with him, I can feel myself in the room. It's like it just happened yesterday.
Mm.
I had more time with him because my maternity leave was longer. And then as soon as I returned back to work, quarantine was a couple weeks after. So then I got more time with them. I was looking at him today like, he's still little enough. This is fun. It didn't go by like that with Gregory. It's almost like a different kid in there. I do not remember I remember being so obsessed with him and loving him, like never feeling a love like that before. But the present moments, there were very few. So when I feel the feelings, I pray to feel present, more present. And now that I do, there's a lot of feeling. It's almost exhausting. It's draining. There's a lot that I feel, but I'm grateful for it.
It is really draining. And especially when those moments can come at any time, anywhere. And yeah, public, in a restaurant, at church, in the store, anywhere.
My OB says that the college now teaches that it takes 3 years to get back to your normal self, mentally and physically. 3 years.
Okay. We've talked about 7 years on the show.
Yeah.
And I challenge the 3 years because Grant will be 5 this year. I've had to do so much more work physically and mentally to get back to a place of grounding. And I'm very careful to say that and not say back to myself because I don't want to go back to who I was.
Right. Yeah, that's the other tricky thing. It's like you don't go back.
I literally, when I see her, I'm like, hey, but there's no conversation. I remember you. How's your mom? Okay. Take care. I don't want to talk to her though. I don't want to talk to her. I love who I'm becoming. And I love this version that I'm building with intent. I do not want to go back to, because it was a whole lot of who I thought I needed to be. That's what I'm telling you guys. The code switching, I think after almost 40 years of doing stuff like that, you don't want to be that person at all. And you get comfortable with knowing that, okay, this is who I am now, but that's going to change too. I don't get comfortable with who I am because I'm consistently chiseling here. Wait, let me sharpen that. Let me fill that in. I'm wondering what age that'll stop at. I feel like I'll always be.
No, you'll always be that. That's you. So going back to talking about partners, we know that there can be disagreements between partners around parenting styles. Do you have any tips for how to navigate those conversations and just finding common ground on that?
I laugh because that too is in motion. Ooh, you do not know. I mean, you know, foundationally, very skeletally, that you are two different people. There's untapped trauma in everyone that formulates opinions and ideas and behaviors that are different than yours. And so we're both type A. I'm the oldest. He's the only for his mom. And I feel like what I want is probably the best route. And he feels that way too. And the society tells him to lead it. I don't need that. I don't need that.
We got it covered.
So there's a challenge. But the pride, I do have to lean into his perspective as a Black male, because that's what we're raising. And no matter how achieved I feel or what it says in black and white, degrees aside, I'm not a Black male. So I have to like listen to his experiences, because some things like I can say to them and he can say to them, but they're going to be able to see him do them. So I can say, when you go into a room, shake the person's hand, look them in the eye. But when they see, oh, every time my dad goes up and he gives them depth, looking at him in the eye, it's that strong, the thing they do. You're not going to see Greg hug and kiss a guy to say hi.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to lean into that and I have to trust that, because for me, like in Kaleena fashion, it wasn't just the normal, oh, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I have the complete opposite with Greg. Greg has always had to advocate for himself in spaces, which shows up in his defensiveness, because he's never been Black enough, because he didn't grow up in a traditional African-American household like we did, with aunties, cousins, soul food, and those experiences, because he's Haitian, but first generation. So your parents are immigrants. So some things go over his head, because it was almost like he was raised in Haiti, but he was definitely over here on Montrose. And I'm like, how do you not know that saying? Or how do you don't remember that show? No, because you guys were listening to Haitian things in the middle of Detroit. There's not a huge Haitian community here. Our households were completely different. He was never Christian enough because he's a Latter-day Saint. So you're an outlier there. You're an outlier to the Black people. You're an outlier even to Haitians because she did not teach him Creole. She did not want him to have an accent. She did not want him to be discriminated against. So even around family, if someone died and everybody went back home to Little Haiti in Florida, that's the American one. He doesn't speak our language. But up here, that's the Haitian one. He's never, ever, ever just fit in somewhere. So he's had to code switch.
You guys both have.
Oh my gosh. There wasn't this tag on the inside of the garment of Greg that said, line dry, machine wash only with light colors. I did not know all the things that I would have to do. I didn't get a warning. There's no label, no fine print.
No.
There was no warranty. Or try this in 21 days and just pay shipping and handling if you would like to return. Like
no return policy.
No return policy.
No.
What am I going to do with this garment? It's zero to wear, for real, for real. Like, so our styles are different because his styles is very much, oh, they're going to get the experiences I didn't, because his parents didn't understand our culture. All the things he signs them up for, he hates it, but I call him a serial signer-upper because they are signed up for everything that he couldn't do. And he's like, oh no, I remember wanting to do this and wanting to do that. And my parents were like, no. So he's like, my kids are doing this. They're going to this private school. They're going to, and so we differ in because he's all about exposure. Sometimes my babies come home tired because he wants to do all the things. And I understand the value of rest. He sees it as unproductive and lazy. I see it as I need it. I need some time. Advocating for myself includes at home, advocating for them because they're tiny humans. They're not going to say, no, they can't.
Right.
It's very relatable, especially about the go, go, go versus the resting. With my husband and I, we're the opposite. I'm the one that
goes.
I'm the busy bee, and my husband knows how to rest, take it easy. He'd be like, I'm clearing my mind right now.
It's important.
And I'll literally be like, what are you doing?
In the spirit of submissiveness, I used to try and keep up, and I would be very tired all the time because I was trying to keep.
But your oppositeness is bringing balance.
Yes.
A lovely, lovely balance in the household.
Okay.
They're on a seesaw.
And they're going to pick up from both.
They are.
But that's so fun. That's so much better than falling off a cliff.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Kaleena, you have so much going on. What are some of the things you do to ensure you don't lose yourself completely in the demands of motherhood?
Also in motion because I do not know what self-care is. I know the definition. This is do not do what I do because I don't practice it. I have confused it with maintenance. So getting my hair done, that's maintenance. You kind of have to do that. Self-care though, I need to give myself permission to do because I feel like I could be doing something else with that money and or time. So I have to figure out how to dip my toe in the water.
What would you think of this self-care?
Saying no to certain things, creating stronger boundaries. And I was just challenged today to be selfish. And I'm like, can you call it something else? Because when it has that connotation, I can't do that. Can you say practice self-care? And he said, no, I need you to be selfish. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I have a friend who struggled with it for a very long time. And she just started this year saying no to her family. And they thought she was crazy. When I say she's glowing and she is much healthier, I know there was an unlock there. And if I could just do that without the guilt, I could probably breathe a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really try to say what's for me is for me and it won't pass me. But as a startup founder, it's really hard to just turn things down. I have not said no to one panel opportunity, interview extended, social hour. I need to get in front of everybody because I need this business to thrive. I need people to know who I am. I need the right investors to be raising an eyebrow at me. And if I said no and I'm not there, they're not going to know who I am. And then that's going to put me behind. And I don't have a co-founder and like, it's just me. So it's really hard for me to say no. But I've been doing it more. There's an opportunity this Saturday. There were 3. I am doing 1. understanding how to reset my nervous system. For me, it is nature. Literally, I can fall asleep with the rain app, or if the sun is hitting a certain way, I'm sitting directly in its beam. That helps me. Or reading about theology, as weird as that sounds, recenters me because it reminds me not of who I am, but who I am in Him. Because so many times people with the anxiety and the overachieving and high achieving, we rely on what we know, what we've been taught, what our resources are. And the less I depend on me and depend on Him, that retools my way of thinking, telling me I'm not in control. That helps me. So theology in that way, because I've been both where I've studied the theology and felt so much guilt in that there are certain conditions I needed to meet in order to be loved by Him, which is super unhealthy because I never met the conditions. So then I loved myself with conditions. So self-care is a struggle for me because self-love has been a struggle. And it still is. If I'm not at a certain weight, hard on myself. If I haven't achieved a certain milestone by the timeline that I set out at the beginning of the year, and it's not looking like it's going to happen, every couple of years I get this itch. I need some sort of performative accolade to feel driven. And we do the same thing with our kids. Like, oh, he's 18 months. Is he not talking? He's not saying this thing. He's not potty trained. The performative accolades drive me. I be feeling myself like I raised this much capital. I did this thing. I did that. I'm co-chair of this committee. But if 2 years goes by and there's been no movement because I did self-care or I rested, what a loser. So I need to reassess, reevaluate what all that means, redefine it, and be okay that my definition of it and my timing of it doesn't look like the same as this person next to me. I was killing myself to be on someone's 40 under 40 list this year. What? They're gonna add $1 to my resume. Half the people that won last year, you don't remember. I'm not minimizing any of the people who've made those lists, but like, what was I willing to do to get on that? I have to ask myself, am I chasing these things because I'm letting them define me? But when you're in your bag naturally, things come. Things come. So I'm trying to do what feels right naturally and take what comes, knowing that my obedience won't speed things up and my disobedience won't slow things down because He already knows what's going to happen. So I've really been trying to eat the popcorn and watch this movie. As long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, oh, what's next? Versus if I did this one thing, man, if I would have never done this, or if I would have did this much more, He would have self-sabotage, punishing myself for what I feel like I didn't do, like I'm God. So clarity, knowing those voices that are, that's not true, versus that's coming from Him, versus that's coming from you. That's not even Satan, that's just you. All the noise, all the open tabs, I lack clarity when I'm not tuned in to some nature or theology or beam of sun or raindrops. Sometimes it's as simple as a hug from one of the boys. Like, that's medicine for me. Literally, it's medicine for me. I woke up the other night and Grant somehow ended up next to me, and just his breathing was medicine for me. It's the little things for me.
You said dipping your toe into self-care.
Mm.
Do you like to swim? Do you like water? Like, was that a hint that maybe you want to be swimming or at the beach?
That's the goal. The goal is to swim fully and immerse myself in self-care because I love to swim. I love to thrive. But I said toe because I'm not practicing any right now. You know what? I did it the other day. I take that back. I did it the other day and I was so inspired. I created content behind it. Sometimes self-care looks like going back to the 90s, is what I titled the content. I left a women's history event in the middle of it because I got just overwhelmed. I was smiling, shaking hands, kissing babies. And I was just like, I'm tired. I don't want to smile anymore. I don't want to say hi anymore. I don't want to talk about zero to wear anymore. And I went to 2 thrift stores, got amazing pieces. When I go back to parts of my childhood where I wasn't code switching and I just was, it's something about me seeing a Lip Smackers or a Trapper Keeper or a Babysitter's Club or Goosebumps title. It just does something to me. I went to this store I had never seen or been to before, and all those things were there. It was the middle of the day, it was the middle of a work day, and I was just like, I'm out of here. And I went and I shopped, and then I went and got ice cream, and I sat in the sun and ate it, and then I picked them up, and that felt so good. It felt like I was skipping school. It felt so good. So that was me dipping my toe in the water.
Oh, for sure.
That was a big toe, not even a pinky toe. So I'm going to do more things like that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't plan on doing that. I planned on staying at that thing till 5:30. It was like 2, and I left.
Yes.
That's more than a dip of a toe, I would say. You pieced
Yeah.
out of there
You're making progress.
and you took care of yourself. You did something just for you, even just for a few hours. I mean, that's amazing.
Yes.
I've never done that.
It's very, very hard. I'm really proud of you. And I know you're going to listen to this episode in the future. Like, okay, yeah, that was early, like you're going to have that perspective later. But for me, starting is always the hardest part. I'm proud of you for starting. I wanted to share really quick 18 months postpartum for me, I became pre diabetic.
Mm.
And that was really hard because I did not experience a lot of health complications during my pregnancy. And despite my eating and activity level, like I didn't have any issues. For me to find that out, I'm so grateful. It was taking the action of self care, going to a physical, not just the OB postpartum, and actually going to the doctor, which I have to thank my sister for always giving me the nudge of the adulting, especially I need to be doing. And that's when I was able to catch it. I was in disbelief for a few months, and then that led me down a journey. I'm happy to say that the prediabetes has reversed. So I'm really grateful about that. But my pre-diabetes dietitian asked me to do an hour of stress relief every day.
Mm.
And that has baffled me. That has stopped me in my tracks. I have struggled to even really understand what stress relief is, how to do it, because there's like fun, but then it's like stress relief. So my self-care right now is very much centered around reducing, alleviating, and avoiding stress. And it's so hard. Sometimes I think of something like, okay, I'm going to give my cat a bath and I'm going to take 30, 35 minutes to do it. And I can incorporate BK to do that with me. And then I'll just towel her dry really slowly, like just do things slowly.
Yeah. Move slower.
It's so hard. I'm struggling. I'm not really doing it every day, but I am noticing the days where I did get an hour.
I love that. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very proud of you, Renee, for reversing the health stuff you had going on, but also just still trying to stick with this. I mean, sometimes we talk about it and it's like, okay, maybe it's not an hour, but what if it's 5 minutes? And what could that look like? And so I think it's just important to do some self-care and not put too much pressure on ourselves to do the self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Don't let the overachieving come in with your self-care progress. It's such a struggle. Do you have any advice that you would give to other moms who may be feeling mom guilt or feeling lost in their identities after having children?
To give yourself grace, literally lead with grace. You are not supposed to get it all right. It's not supposed to look a certain way. I call it fingerprint snowflake. You won't find any that are alike. None of our fingerprints are alike. Snowflakes are different. So my journey is not going to look like I had hyperemesis with both pregnancies. And I really feel like some of it was stress induced because nothing was helping. Zofran, half of a B6 and a sleeping pill. There were all these tricks they were trying, and I could not stop throwing up all day, all night, 9 months during labor. I threw up Pitocin. I couldn't stop throwing up until the baby was out. So I gained weight after because I couldn't eat during. Both were perfect. One 9 pounds, one 10 pounds. I was drained, throwing up all day, all night. And everybody was, did you try lavender pops? Everybody had all this advice. People have their advice. If it's not having to do with solely focusing on you, it really needs to look like listen. Literally, if you have to close your eyes, just listen to yourself. What do you need? What feels good? And if you mess up, it's a part of it. You're supposed to. That's what I would say, to eliminate the guilt and the shame or the embarrassment that you or others put on you. That's anybody who does that, that's not a safe place. So that's important that you're honest with yourself first, because that's where the postpartum depression comes in, I think. Sometimes it's outside of your control.
Mm-hmm.
Close your eyes. If you feel something weird, if you see something, feel something, say something. Like you have to say something. You have to advocate for yourself.
Yes. I'm going to start closing my eyes and asking myself, what feels good?
Yeah. Yeah. What feels good?
That's self-care.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about self-care. We know that you value rest as well. We'd love to hear, what's your normal evening routine? I know you're also very busy entrepreneur. What do you do after the kids are transition into the evening and into sleep?
I make a mental list of what I need to do the next day. I normally put that on the notes page of my phone. That normally consists of any outstanding things lingering for work, any content ideas. I will often read 1 to 2 passages from whatever theology or devotional. And right now, I'm reading Upon Waking by Jackie Hill Perry. And the other one is literally taking you through the 23rd Psalm. So I do those to calm my mind. I get a lot of uninterrupted thoughts because everybody else is asleep. That's my time. And that's why I have designer bags under my eyes. One is Louis, one is Prada, because I'm up when everybody is asleep. But that's when I can think. That's when I can think. I don't have to prepare anybody's food, clean up anyone's spill, look over homework. I can just, it's so quiet. It is almost scary how much I enjoy solitude. I do not need anybody. I feel so safe at night. Like the dark just hugs me. It envelops in this like this comforting cloak because it's still, it's dark, it's quiet. And sometimes that feels more peaceful than the busyness of the traffic you hear conflicting with the consistency of nature. The birds are loud, the sun is bright, the breakfast smells, the water is running, the feet are pitter-pattering. The day is so loud, the night is so quiet. I enjoy the night. I feel like it's just me. Just me.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Motherhood Moments podcast. We appreciate you because we know life gets busy. Maybe you are doing chores during nap time, on a walk, running errands, or rinsing berries. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Vanessa and I are committed to keep sharing more motherhood wisdom. If you enjoyed this episode, please support us by leaving us a review. That's a wonderful way to show your support and let others know they are not alone. Until next time, and remember to check